This film series is very long. It will take you years to read all of the many dozens of books that have been condensed into this film presentation, and longer than this film series to read just any one of them. Take your time to watch and digest it in segments at your own pace. You are about to be given the keys to the Ferrari you have always wanted. Buckle up. You will never drive the same again. All rights reserved. We reserve all rights. George Orwell said, "He who controls the past controls the future, and he who controls the present controls the past." It is no accident that his Ingsoc English socialism logo is red, in honor of the ancient goddess of arrows, war, and weaving, Neith, the goddess of the red crown of Lower Egypt, itself a metaphor for the human body and lower carnal mind, and doubles as the letter V for Venus, aka Lucifer, and also the Roman numeral V for 5, the pentagram of Venus, aka Lucifer. The Bible calls Lucifer the morning star, as it always appears just before sunrise, as seen here, and it is called the evening star when it shines brightly just after sunset, as seen here. Similar to the moon, Venus has a much longer half-year crescent phase as well, and so its ancient crescent symbolism is often mistaken as the moon, as seen here with the Baphomet. He is pointing to Venus, the morning star up above, and Venus, the evening star down below. He has the 4 elements that make up all physical creation: fire on his head, air on his wings, water on his fish-scaled stomach, and he sits on earth, and he has the pentagram of Venus on his forehead, as Venus forms a pentagram flower shape as it retrogrades every 18 months over 8 years while orbiting over our Earth plane. It is also no coincidence that a never-proven-to-exist hypothetical moon of Venus was named Neith, after the Egyptian goddess of arrows, or that her arrows are all over both the Rothschild Foundation logo as well as their family coat of arms, or on the Great Seal of the United States for that matter. In fact, the Rothschilds are part of an ancient Luciferian cult of Venus that has infiltrated and perverted our sacred religious texts and holy sciences, and brainwashed most people into believing Lucifer is some factual being or fallen angel of God, and that the astrotheological deeper meanings in our holy scriptures are satanic witchcraft, never to be studied and understood, so that most of us so-called profane don't ever gain the esoteric knowledge to understand what our scriptures are actually talking about allegorically. Humans are triune spiritual beings experiencing a physical perceived duality, and hence physical symbols can have both a positive and a negative meaning. To the ancients, this symbol celebrated the ebb and flow of life as the Big Dipper circles the North Star Polaris like clockwork each year. To Jews and Nazis, this symbol means death and destruction. The symbol of Venus is no different.
Easiest way to do magic to change your reality is by understanding the pentagram. In magic, we're not working with the physical elements, we're working with the 5 elements of human consciousness. Spirit represents the womb of creation, the void where all creation springs from. Spirit descends first into fire, which represents the power of willpower. Fire or willpower descends up to air, which represents the mind, thinking. Air, the mind, then descends to the element of water, which represents desire and emotion. Then desire and emotion descends into the earth, which represents the physical body that takes action. The pentagram reveals how energy moves from spirit to willpower. Willpower creates thought in the mind. thought turns into desire, and desire then moves the physical body to take action. So if you want to control your reality, control your mind of what you think, because what you think becomes what you feel, and what you feel is what your body takes action upon. And that is how you create your reality.
There is nothing evil or satanic about that Venus-Lucifer pentagram. That's literally how a human spirit navigates and manifests its experience in this physical plane of its triune existence. Understanding this could be called light Luciferianism or white magic. But notice the circle, spirit, the womb of creation, descends into will. But Aleister Crowley said, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law," bypassing the spirit source altogether. And when you invert this to the satanic pentagram, now you have the body and will on top, meaning do what you want to serve your bodily carnal lust for money, wealth, sex, riches, carnal pleasures, greed, material things, etc., not higher spiritual endeavors like being of service to others in the creation or advancing yourself spiritually. That is Satanism or dark Luciferianism or black magic. Dr. Andrew Kaufman recently said the world is run by a Luciferian cult and the medical industry is evidence. It is exactly this Luciferian cult of Venus that you'll never hear about until now, who controls the present, that has hidden our true past from us so that they can control our future. So if we want to take back control of our future, we need to go back to our true past to understand why they are so hell-bent on hiding it from us. Modern civilization as we know it started in the British Isles, or Eire, long before it was split up into Ireland, Scotland, England, Wales, etc., and was spread to the rest of the world. You can find ample proof of this in the excellent books Ireland, Ur of the Chaldees by Anna Wilkes, and The Irish Origins of Civilization by Michael Tessarian, as well as the Irish Annals Chronology by the last of the surviving ominous Druids. Civilization did not come out of Africa, as we are told, nor did it come out of Sumeria or Egypt, as the Setian Atenist cult of Venus has falsely taught us all through falsifying history and creating fake fictional historians like Josephus Flavius and Pliny the Elder. Money does not rule the world. The Setian Atenist created false Abrahamic religions do, and exponentially more people have been murdered throughout history in the name of these religions than anyone killed for money or wars for resources. Long ago, before their genocide and removal from the history books by the Luciferian Setian Atenist cult of Venus, existed the Irish Druidic Magian priests of Yesa Creost. The common language of the people of Eire was called Gaeilge, or Old Irish, also known as Naga in other parts of the world. These Irish Druids held the symbol of the serpent and the dragon, the constellation Draco that circles Polaris in the northern hemisphere over Ireland every day, in the highest esteem, and considered them insignias of Druidic royalty. They referred to themselves as the Nadrids, meaning wise serpents, and Nagas, a Hindu word they brought to India later, meaning kingly serpents. Manly P. Hall wrote of the ancient priesthood who were known as the Serpent Kings. But there have never been snakes in Ireland, so who or what are these serpents that were cast out by the fake Setian Atenist created character St. Patrick on behalf of Christianity? They were the Druidic serpent priests of Yesa Creost. Yesa Creost, or Jesus Christ, was not a man or God incarnated in the flesh. Yesa Creost was the Irish Druidic religion of both sun worship and God's Spirit incarnated into the flesh of every single living man and woman on earth. Today, Less than 2% of the modern Irish people can still speak this dead Gaeilge Old Irish language, and the closest surviving forms we have are Welsh, Gaelic, and Manx from the Druidic Isle of Man, itself a mixture of Gaelic and Old Gaeilge. The Septinatinist Roman Catholic Church and the Church of England murdered everyone to hide this language, including the Scottish Highlands genocide, cutting off the writing hand of any Welsh caught writing it, the Irish potato famine, in which there were plenty of potatoes, but the church took them all and starved everyone to death, and the Irish indentured servants sent around the world away from Ireland in the Septinatinist slave trade. Why? Because this near-dead language they tried so hard to destroy forever is the key to the Ferrari in seeing through their Abrahamic religion scam and bringing down their entire New World Order for good. It is their Achilles heel, and you are about to get the keys to the Ferrari, at great risk to me for giving them to you. Jesus, or Yesa, is not a man's name, any more than there is a man named Sleepy Comfy Pillow Snore. It is an Irish Gaeilge hybrid word from the Irish yes, meaning spirit, and asa, meaning seed fluid or semen. Creost is the Irish krios, meaning cross, band, circle, the name of the zodiacal sun. As Conor McDarry points out in his book Irish Wisdom Preserved in Bible and Pyramids, before it was infiltrated and perverted by the Septinatinist Roman Catholic Church and later the Church of England, Freemasonry was the mystery college of these Druidic Irish adepts, spelled P-H-R-E Mason, from the Irish free, meaning the sun. It was in Ireland that the real Freemasonry began. These Druids invented alchemy. The circle is the alchemical glyph for the spirit, and the Freemasonic compass is the tool used to draw a circle. The square is the alchemical glyph for the physical material realm, and the Freemasonic square is the tool used to draw a square. Together, they make the Freemasonic compass and square logo to symbolize spirit incarnated into flesh, or the physical. Yesa Creost is the Spirit of God in the Son and its lower human aspect of the divine spark, or spirit in the essence of man, the Savior and light of the world. Michael Tessarian shows here the Druidic Yesa Creost with his crown. The Druid crown was not of thorns, but of roses with thorn stems, and we'll get into the Rosicrucians later. Regardless of the many spellings and renditions, from Isa, Esa, Yesa, Jesu, Isa, Yesa, Jesse, Yeshua, Ishwara, or Asar, etc., the archetype is always the same. The biblical patriarch Isaac is a clear rendition of Yesa, the Irish god of light. The much later Celts and remaining Druids also personified him as the nature god Cernunnos, which Cern is named after, and even later the Gauls called him Hermes or Hermes, Jesus or Jesus, the Lord of all wild things, or the nature god, the horned one, or he who has horns, later appropriated as thorns, and perhaps the misinterpreted origins of why Mormons believe Jesus and Satan are brothers, Satan iconized as having horns as well. Christian literalists can't figure out why Jesus disappears at age 12 and reappears at age 30. It is because it is an allegory. 12 times 30 equals 360, the degrees of the circle, and 360 degrees of the square, representing the spirit or the Christ Buddhic principle in man. Why are Catholics forbidden to be Masons? Obviously, because the Pope is claiming to be the vicar or substitute of Christ until he comes back, And many of the non-infiltrated Masonic lodges still have this Irish knowledge. They know it's all a scam and there was no historical Jesus Christ, so he isn't coming back. They know the kingdom of God or Christ principle is already inherently within each of us, as we are all God's children made in his image. Isn't that what they say Jesus was? The child of God in God's own image himself? But the temptations of this physical world make us forget our divinity and act like devils and sinners, and only we can save ourselves by consciously choosing to be a light in this world, not a dark blemish and hellish burden to the others we share this world with. Internal conscious spiritual salvation through choice and self-discipline, not external salvation through just believing in Jesus while being a dickhead to others, doing no good works to even deserve any state of heaven. In fact, 11 of the world's most brutal, notorious serial killers were all Christians who believed in Jesus as their salvation, and even the son of Sam Jew, David Berkowitz, converted to evangelical Christianity on death row when he heard it was his Hail Mary magic ticket out of hell. And since scaring the hell out of people into thinking they have to believe in literal Jesus to get into heaven or face eternal damnation and have to join their religious control cult and give them your hard-earned money every Sunday to do so, you can see why they don't want 2.3 billion Christians, the largest religion in the world, making up 29% of the alleged population, to figure this scam out. Or that's the end of that cash cow and mind control mechanism. So long as they don't have the Irish Galga keys to the Ferrari to figure this out, they'll never be any the wiser. There are 30 verses in the Christian Bible about how much God loves his children. So he set up a world where 67% of his beloved children don't believe in Jesus as their salvation and are damned to eternal hell. Is that your definition of love? Would you wish that upon 3 out of 4 of your own children? Or are you being duped? And you Jews and Muslims aren't off the hook. They've got you all duped just as bad, as you'll see. On the left, you can see many Irish personified names for different aspects and characteristics of the Son and the Spirit. And on the right are the fictional names the Luciferian Setianatinist mythmakers have given them to hide their true origins and meanings. Baal is not a demon. It is the fertility aspect of the sun taken from the Irish Bel and Beul, and we'll get into that in detail later. These Irish Druidic priests taught the world that man reincarnates into the physical for around 1,000 years, until he achieves 7 perfected incarnations, finally free from the lower physical animal desires, emotions, and sexual pleasure and need for regeneration, after which we perfect our solar body and do not need to return back to this physicality. I am not claiming this is what actually happens, only showing that this was the religion of their time. It is quite comical that we are falsely sold the idea that early Christians and Jews were vehemently opposed to astrology, even attributing it to demonic origin, because astrology is the ancient Druidic Irish religion that is the origin of both Christianity and Judaism, encoded heavily in both the Old Jewish and New Christian Testament. Even well-meaning and respected non-religious researchers have been led astray without the Ferrari keys. The archons are not little astral demons, aliens, or entities. They are the builders of the physical universe. Each one is related to one of the 7 planets of astrology. They prevent the soul from leaving the material realm until the spiritual obstacles of overcoming their negative thought and behavioral aspects and influences are overcome. This is the 7 perfected incarnations taught by the ancient Druids. This is metaphor for astrology. These are the so-called 7 deadly sins we are told we must transmute into the 7 heavenly virtues to return from reincarnation in the flesh to completing our solar body in the spirit realm. We see these in the ancient Irish Druidic teachings brought to the East and Southeast in the form of Buddhism. In opening the 7 body chakras, you will no longer fear and feel stable now, no longer have lust, desire for sex, no longer desire food, no longer hate anything or anyone, no longer hold yourself back to express yourself, have the ability to read people's energies, have intuition and the ability to astral travel, and be at one with everything. No negative traits, no ego, no hate, no desire for material things or attachment to the physical. No more lessons to learn here. Not be like some other alleged ancient guy called Jesus Christ, but become the embodiment of Yesu Christ yourself, God's Spirit embodied in the flesh. The Irish Druids taught that the 7 planets of astrology are 7 cosmic energetic bodies that influence consciousness. The constellations, planets, and celestial bodies contribute as dynamic vibrational components that shape our perception of reality. Each of these planets emits a distinct frequency, weaving a tapestry of energies that defines uniqueness. The Irish Bible calls the archons the Elohim, and that we are a microcosm of the macrocosm. We are God-made flesh, meaning we are the image of the constellations, planets, and celestial bodies. As above, so below. And you would do well to read the Book of Wisdom by Harry B. Joseph if you have not already. This same ancient Irish Druidic wisdom even shows up in the 7 astrological stages of each of our incarnations. Here you're a helpless little child who needs parental stability to get you through rapid growth change. Here, you become a rebellious teen as you develop your spiritual identity, framework, and life mission. Here, you chase and focus on lovers, partners, and sex, and probably find a permanent mate. Here, you build your career and get settled. Here, you have your midlife crisis and finally get serious and down to the hard work you put off. Here, you enjoy the fruits of your last 18 years of getting serious. And here, you are sick of the BS and finished with it all. And that seems to be a good allegory for the progression of 1,000 years of incarnations in their ancient system. As Connor McDarry Jr. showed in his book, The Bible, an Irish Book, when you look at the alleged genealogies of the fictional Bible characters, either their ages always add up to just under or over 1,000 years, or they purposely list only 7 or 10 offspring to encode this belief system for the initiates. You will see shortly that none of these are names of historical people, but rather Irish compound words cleverly put together to convey hidden spiritual and astrological concepts. But we see this coding in the New Testament in both Matthew and Luke. You will see that the alleged genealogies of Jesus Christ, aka Yesu Christ, the perfected solar spiritual body, stops after 7 allegorical patriarchs, meaning perfected incarnations. Both Gospels stop at David, 7, because Mary begets Jesus through immaculate conception from God, and Joseph is not Jesus' metaphorical biological father. God is. Joseph is his father-in-law. The rest are not names of actual people, so you cannot be a descendant of fictional characters any more than a descendant of Shrek or Anakin Skywalker. Let's take Abraham for now, the alleged patriarch of the Abrahamic religions. Abraham comes from 3 Irish compound words put together. Ab, meaning father or creator sun, Ra, meaning moving or revolving sun, and Am, meaning time, as the sun is the governor, lord of time, and regulator of seasons. Abraham is the personified sun. He comes from the land of Ur, an Irish word meaning sun, fire, east, where the sun comes from every day, heaven, aka the sky, heavenly kingdom, and Ur is said to be in Chaldea, from the Irish word kul, meaning a veil, secret, hidden, the great unseen, the dark night sky when the sun is gone. A Chaldean or Irish Kildee was an Irish religious aesthetic of worship of Yesa, the seer. The son, Abraham, has two consorts, a wife named Sarah, from the Irish ser or sorsh or sark, meaning delight, light, pleasure, bright, clear, the daylight, and he also has a concubine named Hagar, from the Irish root agor, meaning covetousness, desire. The letter H is normally only an auxiliary in Irish, but the church doctors added it in the front as a regular letter for deception, and they switched the C in acor to a G, as was common to interchange in Old English. So acor became hidden as Hagor or Hagar. Hagar, the nighttime, bears Abraham a son, Ishmael, from the Irish compound Yes Mol, Yes meaning the sun and Mol meaning bald. He is the bald early morning sun who has no rays until later, born of the night. So Abraham, the sun's wife Sarah, the day, gets jealous of Hagar, the night, and has Abraham send Hagar, the night, away, just as the daytime sends the night away every day in nature. And yet to this day, these poor dupes think they are the literal descendants of Shrek, Yes Mol, the Irish allegory for the not-so-bright bald sun that comes out every morning after the sun has been off with its lover all dark night. And both of these poor dupes think they are the literal descendants or followers of Luke and Anakin Skywalker, Jesus and Isaac, the Irish allegories for the bright, radiant sun born at full glory in the daytime. They are all fighting and killing each other over ancient esoteric allegorical Irish Druidic fairy tales for basic astronomy taken literally. It's manufactured insanity and by careful Setian Atenist design. They've been mind-controlled to think this conflict has been going on for 4,000 years. But has it really? It is not in the scope of this film to cover all of these detailed Irish explanations and breakdowns for all of these allegorical Bible stories and genealogies, from the creation to Adam and Eve, the allegorical children of Cain, Noah, Nimrod, etc., which you can find in Conor McDarry's book, The Bible, an Irish Book. But we need to cover a few for context. There is no historical 4,000-year-old war going on between the Moabites and Israelites, shown there in green, because just like the others, Lot is provably not a real historical character, which you can find in McDarry's same book or pause and read here, and Moab and Israel are also Irish compound words and descriptive allegories for the conflict going on in the human personality between the good and evil forces of the higher and lower nature of man, not historical groups of people. Let's look at Lot's two allegorical daughters who allegedly seed the allegorical, not historical, Moabites and Ammonites. Lot's oldest daughter has a son named Moab, from the Irish compound words mo, meaning my, and ab, meaning father, signifying the obedience to the lower physical nature, lusts, appetites, and passions of this world, at variance and opposition to the spiritual nature. In other words, your spirit didn't come here to jerk off to porn and bang underage sex slaves and hoes on yachts or Epstein Island. His descendants are the Moabites, those humans engrossed in the lower carnal animal sex nature. Lot's youngest daughter has a son Ben-Ami or Benjamin, from the Irish compound words Ben meaning son, and Am meaning bad, naughty, and Me meaning man or a slave, signifying the prodigal son or a man who is a slave to his lower habits. His descendants are the Ammonites, also an Irish compound word from Am meaning bad, naughty, and Mun meaning trick, device or vice or a wile, a seductive trick, being constantly engrossed in activities of self-physical gratification and not spiritual community with the whole. This is Satanism in a nutshell, not genetic ancestry to a certain people, but a behavioral inclination to act like a physical wild animal instead of a spiritual human being. Because they too did not know civilization comes from Ireland and not Egypt, researchers like the great Bill Donahue falsely thought Israel comes from Isis, Ra, and El, which is neither true nor satanic, in fact the opposite. The term Israel consists of 3 Irish word syllables. The is from yes, the spirit which is in the human seed fluid, not Isis, then Ra, an Irish name of the sun, and El, the name of God, though when El is at the end of a word, it can also mean a messenger of. So any man who was striving to live a spiritual life was a Yudek or Jew, from the Irish Yud meaning the day, which we'll get into shortly, showing that he was a disciple or devotee of the sun. Those who had advanced and were seeking a higher order of spirituality are, in the Bible allegory, called the Israelites, or disciples of or messengers of Yesa, the God of the sun and his spirit in man. The average man, or common run of humanity, is comprehended in the term Philistine, taken from the Irish word Fuil, pronounced Phil, meaning blood and also signifying a family or tribe. In its biblical application, Philistine comprehends all of those who are absorbed in carnal things, the flesh and the world, rather than the things of the spirit, just the same as the allegorical Ammonites or Moabites. So again, in the myth, Israel represents the good forces or higher nature in man, struggling to overcome the stubborn opposition of the forces of Moab, the lower physical nature, its lusts, appetites, and passions. This is the true basis of the mythical wars between Moab and Israel, and the teachings of these wars as part of historical history has been a gross evil perpetrated by the Luciferian Setian Atenist cult by design, as we'll see when we get into the current world events later. These poor dupes have been conned into depopulating each other over the belief that the offspring of their ancestors Shrek and Anakin Skywalker are somehow more entitled than the other for the kingdom of Shrek or the Death Star, which never historically existed. I'm sorry, Jews and Muslims, the Dome of the Rock on its octagon base is fairly recent Tartarian architecture and has an identical twin in Chicago, now posing as the Adler Planetarium. It is not some ancient holy site with some ancient Temple of Solomon buried beneath it. Jerusalem is not a remote ancient historical place. It is an allegory for the perfect spiritual body, which the ego self is trying to build up, the ancient druidic solar body we spoke about earlier, after 1,000 years of reincarnation and 7 perfected incarnations. Jerusalem comes from the Irish root IAR, pronounced air, meaning the west, and is identical with Eire, the west, Ireland. The Irish word name is Jerusalem. Air is spirit. Jerusalem Township is still sitting there to this day in County Kildare, Ireland. Modern Jerusalem was placed in Syria by the Roman Catholic Setian Atenist Church during the Crusades to give the appearance of historic truth to her readaptation of the Irish scripture myth in a new setting, and to divert the great stream of pilgrims, for profit, who used to go to Ireland, now towards the new shrine of the East, with Rome as a station on the route there. I'm sorry to you Jews and Zionist dupes, but there is no historical 6th century BC Temple of Solomon buried beneath the modern city of Jerusalem in the Middle East. This is allegory. You can get details on all of the Bible passages regarding Jerusalem in both Conor McDarry's books, Irish Wisdom Preserved in Bible and Pyramids, and The Bible, an Irish Book. In her book, Ireland, Ur of the Chaldees, Anna Wilkes had an entire chapter showing that a literal Shinar or Babylon could not possibly have been in the Middle East, where, like modern Jerusalem, the Setian Atenist Roman Church and Templars have also been renaming Irish mythology into modern map names to transplant fake history into the Middle East, as we'll see proof of shortly. But even she, a Bible literalist, admits that Babylon comes from Hebrew, which is the Irish Gaeilge language of the priests of Yesu Christ, that the word Babel is from Balal, to confound, and from Balbal, confusion, and here might be the confusion. In George Arthur Gaskell's enormous dictionary of all scriptures and myths, it is clear as day. Babylon is a symbol of the lower nature of desire and sensation, which holds the soul in captivity. Babylon is the mystic Druidic name for the stronghold of materialism, and Jerusalem is the soul, or rather spirit, not a place. Bethlehem is a symbol of the condition of purity and peace of mind, wherein the Christ soul can be born as the son of mind, or man, and be protected at first from the strife of the lower emotions and desires. Every faithful soul is Bethlehem, as Jerusalem also is said to be, which has the peace and tranquility of that Jerusalem which is above in heaven. The story of the ass tied and colt is allegorical for the disciplined qualities of thought and behavior that the Christ soul progresses upon to its higher state, the heavenly Jerusalem, not this literal desert shithole town in the Middle East. The Temple of Solomon, built without noise or hammer, buried below the real Jerusalem, your higher ego and mind, is you. The body is the temple of the soul and mind. Solomon is a hybrid word, not a name of a king. Sol or soul is soul, the sun, and Mon is mind, the moon, the temple of the soul of man, you. It is said to be built by Hiram Abiff. Abiff means father or heavenly father, and Hiram or high ram is a clever disguise for Aries, the ram or lamb of God, your cerebrum or cerebram, where your pineal gland sits, said to be the seat of the soul, right between your temples, where also sits your other ram's horns, the hippocampus, alleged to regulate memory and learning, which is how you evolve to a higher conscious state each incarnation, by learning from mistakes and remembering the lessons. The skull and crossbones are a symbol for the Knights Templar, as are the two branches, one symbolizing their Cistercian clerics, and the other branch the knights themselves, as we've already covered the compass and square, spirit into physical. So the ancient Hebrews were the Irish Druidic priests of the fire, the sun, Yesu Christ. The Irish name of this cult of Druidic priests is the Ebra, or Ian, and Heber is Irish for Ea, fire, the sun. You will notice Enki's name in the work of Zechariah Sitchin and the Irish Sumerian tablets is Ea. These are not aliens from planet Nibiru in deep outer space, and Sitchin's is highly suspect as a Setian Atenist disinformation agent. Assyriologists and Sumerologists have challenged him to several debates, which he always declined, and pointed out he lacked formal training in ancient languages, leading to numerous errors in his translations. Two major ones of many are that he interpreted the Sumerian word mu, meaning sky or heaven, as spaceship, and he also misrepresented the term Anunnaki, meaning those of royal blood, the Druidic priests, to suggest alien origin. So the word Jew comes from the Irish Yud or Yud, meaning the day, light, followers of the light, people who followed the spiritual sciences and teachings of the Ebra, Irish Hebrew priests of Yesa Kriost. Jews are not some genetic race of people. You could be black, white, Asian, Middle Eastern, Native American, whatever. They were religious followers, not some chosen race of people. To this day, many modern Jews falsely think they are the descendants of the Israelites because, as we learned, Israel is not a race of people or a place, but a spiritual state of being representing the good forces and higher nature of man, which these ancient Yuds were trying to achieve by following the spiritual practices of their teachers, the Irish Druidic Hebrew priests of Yesa Kriost. To cover this up, the mythmakers have created a false history of the so-called Phoenicians, coming out of nowhere from where modern Israel has been placed today, expanding east to west, and suddenly conquering and creating a huge empire around the Mediterranean. This is to hide the fact that it happened the other way around. The word Phoenicians is a cleverly distorted Irish word, Fionn or Finn, meaning the sun. The Irish Druids who spread their colleges around the world were the seafaring Phoenicians. The Middle East has very limited forest resources and to this day functions as a consumption and distribution hub for timber. Ireland and the now British Isles, on the other hand, have plenty of sturdy timber to create a strong navy of wooden seafaring ships. In his book Anacalypsis, Godfrey Higgins pointed out the Irish language, or Gaeilge, not Gaelic, is the oldest of which there is any knowledge, Hebrew being the next oldest, and Chaldee, or Chaldean Arabic, the next. As you will see, that is because they are all the same. He remarked that the Morning Herald of 1827 had an article about a Bible society that passed out Hebrew Bibles to the Irish peasantry because they could understand them better than those written in English. The English word father is Abe or Aba in Irish, Aba in Chaldean Arabic, and Abe in Hebrew, still the same in modern Arabic. Mother is Aim in Irish, or ma'am in Welsh, where we get the term yes ma'am, Aim in Chaldean Arabic, and Aim in Hebrew, and down the list it goes throughout the entire languages. In English, the Lord or the Son is Bel or Beel in Irish, Baal or Baal in Chaldean Arabic, and Baal in Hebrew. Baal is not a demon. The Luciferian Setian Atenist Church has brainwashed Christians into thinking Jewish Canaanites worship a demon, which we'll get into what a Canaanite really is later. Many people in the truth community still unwittingly regurgitate this nonsense to this day, but you can see why the Irish peasantry understood the Hebrew Bible better than the English, because the Hebrew words are nearly identical to the Irish language. But even more interesting is that you will notice that the ancient Chaldean Arabic and ancient Hebrew letters for these words are nearly identical in most all cases. But Arab Middle Easterners have never made it as far as Ireland. Even in the Muslim invasion of Europe in the alleged Dark and Middle Ages, they were stopped at France. So why are their words and writing nearly identical? It should be obvious. So the Luciferian Setian Atenist Roman Catholic Church has tried to tell us the Old Testament of the Bible was written in Hebrew, but the New Testament was written in Greek. But yet it's clear in the Beth-Lewisnian alphabet that there are some remarkable resemblances to the sound of Hebrew and Greek letters, which also stem from the oldest known language, Irish Gaeilge. Here are just 5 examples, and notice the Hebrew and Greek letter pronunciations are based on Irish names for trees, clearly Druidic nature worship. But since Jesus Christ is supposed to be from the Greek New Testament, yet we have already established Yesa Kriost is ancient Irish Gaeilge, somebody has clearly been lying to us about the real origins and dates of the New Testament. The American Indians had a master language understood by all tribes with the exception of 2 from coast to coast. The language was called Algonquin and is a hybrid of 2 Irish words, Algon meaning noble and Hine meaning family, Algonquin or noble family. On page 119 in volume 2 of his book Native Races, Hubert Howe Bancroft mentions an American Indian chief who said his tribe taught the children no other language but Welsh, Irish, until they were 11 years old. The Florida Seminole Indians are called the ancient Israelites of the Florida Everglades, and when anthropologists found them, they were purposely curling their hair in Jewlocks like the curly-haired Irish and spoke an ancient form of Hebrew. Remember, the common people spoke Irish Gaeilge. Hebrew was a special language for the Druidic priests of Yesa Kriost, just like we all speak our common languages and Roman Catholic priests speak their own priest language, Latin. All around the world in native tribes, we find their sun gods have nearly identical names to Irish sun gods, yet these natives are still primitive and have never conquered the seas or traveled to Ireland. They all have stories about these ancient blue-eyed people who came and taught them civilization and sun and nature worship religions. In Jamaican patois, Airi means great, peace, happiness, good vibes. Irie is the Irish name of ancient Ireland. To this day, we have blue-eyed, light-skinned natives of Afghanistan, also Pakistan. We also find them in Iran and even India as well. We have the red-haired mummies of China, known as the Tarim. Tara was the capital of ancient Ireland and the seat of the great Druidic Ebra priests of Yesa Kriost. I'm not even going to get into the so-called worldwide Tartarian Empire. I think you're already starting to get the picture. What I will say is that there is a popular theory out there that the 1,000-year millennial reign of Christ already happened and was erased from our history books, and that was Tartaria. That's close, but it wasn't a literal man called Jesus Christ. It was the millennial reign of Yesa Kriost, a world of peace and spiritual science spread by these druids before they were genocided by the Luciferian Setian Atenus cult of Venus and erased from our history. Again, the 1,000 years is coming from the ancient Druidic idea that man reincarnates for 1,000 years until he builds his perfected Christed solar body and does not need to return. This same idea persisted with the Cathars or Albigensians in France and Italy, who were slaughtered, hanged, or burned at the stake by the Setian Atenus Roman Catholic Church in the First Albigensian Crusades and later by the medieval Inquisition for these heretical beliefs.
Cathars believed procreation was a sin because it trapped a soul. Original sin isn't eating an apple. It's the act of dragging a pure spirit down into a dirty biological body. Every birth is a kidnapping. The sinner is the one who builds the prison cell, the parent.
But I digress. We have the blue-eyed statues of pharaohs in Egypt and kings in Sumer. We have the Mandan Sioux Indians, many of whom have blue eyes, blonde hair, and fair complexion. When anthropologists found them, they were not living in teepees, but but rather stone cob huts identical to those they lived in ancient Ireland and Albion or Britain. We are told that Rome was founded by one of two twin brothers, Romulus and Remus, the children of the daughter of a king who were ordered to be killed, so they were put in a basket on the river Tiber, the identical Irish mythology story of Moses, but they were found and suckled back to life by a she-wolf, then eventually adopted by a shepherd, and then Romulus kills Remus and founds the city of Rome in 753 BC, if you believe that whopper of a story. The fake history mythmakers have simply reversed the words. Romulus spelled backwards is Sulamor, Irish for the great light, the sun. His twin brother Remus spelled backwards is Sumer, Irish for the summer. They are placed in a basket in the river. The Irish word ark, spelled A-R-C, means a basket, a ship, vessel, body, implying the vehicle of the ego or self incarnating through the sun as the physical fetus in the womb of the mother, as we'll get into later in the Irish myth of Noah's Ark. The eighth descendant of Canaan is called Arkite or Arkite, an average human being who is generated and born into the flesh as the ego or self into the fetus in the womb of the mother. Canaan is neither a historical place nor a historical character, the alleged son of allegorical Noah's allegorical son Ham, but rather a hybrid word from the Irish ka, meaning a house, na, meaning the soul, and an, meaning small or little, representing the lower personality or bodily nature, the man of little soul development. In the Zoroastrian Persian world creation myth, instead of Adam and Eve, their names are Mashya and Mashyana. Encyclopedia Masonica half gives away the secret by calling them Meshia and Meshiana, corresponding to Adam and Eve in Persian cosmogony. Meshia is an idiomatic Irish word meaning basket, package, or spirit, very close to the word Messiah, implying spirit entering the fetus in the mother's womb. Meshiana is the Irish feminine of Meshia. It is a druidic myth for the ego self and the human seed fluid, which at generation is cast into the receptacle of the womb. Also proof that the Irish druids brought this to Persia, not the other way around. The female wolf that suckles and nourishes Romulus and Remus is the sun. Hercules is an Irish compound word for the sun, from her meaning above and Q meaning wolfhound, swift, the high one. It is not a Greek mythological person. Greek, Roman, and Scandinavian mythology are all provably Irish in origin. An is an Irish name for the sun and also means wolf dog, noble, good, excellent, swiftness, fierceness, eagerness, cause, reason. We are told in the book of John, chapter 3, verse 23, and John was baptized in Aenon, near to Salem. The Revised Bible made it Enon, E-N-O-N, but the original is Aenon, from the Irish word ain, meaning circle of the sun, a year, and on, the sun, and wolf dog. And no, I'm sorry, neither John the Baptist nor John the Apostle are historical characters. This is all Druidic astrotheology, and you can find an excellent video on the subject on Marty Leeds' YouTube channel, Gnostic Academy. Osiris and Horus are not Egyptian. In the myth, we are told Horus is the son of Osiris. Osiris is an Irish compound word from os, meaning high, and S-O-I-R, pronounced sir, meaning east, the morning sun. In the mythical idea, the sun is Osiris in the early morning and becomes Horus, the risen sun and savior in the early afternoon. Horus comes from the Irish word or, aspirated to hor with an H, meaning Lord and Savior, one to whom prayer is offered, and also from whom in the sense of descent. He is the wolf Horus at noon, when his rays are hot and oppressive, and also Typhon, the evil one. I know there are channels out there claiming Typhon is some other object than the sun that comes periodically and wipes everything out, but now you have the keys to the Ferrari and know that Typhon is an Irish hybrid word, and on means the sun and fierceness. They also have Melchu, meaning the sun, a gray hound or wolf dog, and Anchu, meaning a wolf, showing that Rome was originally an Irish Druidic colony before it fell to the Scythian Setianatinus dark side of Druidism, aka sorcery, still controlling our world to this day. These liars have told us that suddenly out of nowhere, Stone Age imbeciles with no good explanation as to how started a flourishing civilization in the middle of nowhere in the deserts of the Middle East, now central Iraq, and magically invented arts, math, law, language, music, religion, science in Sumer or Sumeria in 3300 BC. If you don't know that number 33 by now, used to encode so much fake news and fake history, you are way behind the game and need to get studying. But now that we have the keys to the Ferrari, Sumeria comes from the Irish Somra, Sumer, meaning the sun. It was clearly hot there like summer when the Irish Druids colonized it and brought and taught all of these arts and sciences, so they named it Sumer. The Irish word Syracuse means Easterner, the sun. That is who named Syracuse, Sicily, a Druidic colony east of Ireland, and also who named the Syracuse Indians on the central east coast of the United States. These Irish Druids were in the Americas way before the Vikings, Pilgrims, Spanish, or Cristobal Colonia. This is why the Mormons and many other confused Christians and researchers keep asking if Jesus magically jumped a boat to the Americas at a time when no Middle Easterners could even get there or allegedly knew about the Americas. Because the Native Americans already knew the ancient Irish Druidic teachings of Jesu Christ, or Gnostic Christianity. Nobody can understand how they could possibly know Gnostic Christianity since the Setianatinus and Church deleted where it came from and who really taught it to the natives from our history. Red ochre has been used as sunscreen since ancient times and is still used by native tribes in some places like Angola to this day. In the Americas, the mysterious red ochre people are said to be an indigenous people of North America. In the areas of the Midwest, their graves were found with clay pots filled with red ochre in them, and surprise, surprise, they were thought to have spoken an ancestral form of the Algonquin languages, from the Irish Algon meaning noble and Hine meaning family, but yet thought to be there from 1000 BC to 400 BC. If you've ever seen Irish and English people on vacation in Majorca or Cyprus, their skin does not do well in the sun. Red ochre would be the perfect protection for them in hot regions. And sure enough, in Egyptian steles, we see all of these different colored types of people. But who are these red people? And why are even the gods drawn in red? Are these the blue-eyed pharaohs on the statues? The Irish Druidic priests of Jesu Christ wearing red ochre sunscreen? Pierre-François Xavier Bouchard, who allegedly found the Rosetta Stone, was born to Pierre Bouchard Sr., a master joiner mason, which is an artistic custom carver and craftsman, someone who in ancient times could have made something like the Rosetta Stone, for example, and was also a businessman and a merchant. Pierre Jr. was later made a Knight of the Order of St. Louis by the Setianatinist Royal House of Bourbon. Notice the Setianatinus Knights Templar Cross. He was also made a member of the French Scientific and Artistic Institute. Then we are told he went off to Egypt, where he just happened to find the Rosetta Stone lying there. on either the 15th or 19th of July, but definitely not the 16th, 17th, or 18th. Later dated to 196 or 19 and 6 BC, that the locals somehow missed for 1995 years. Remember that number 19. It is the key to decoding fake Setian Atenist history. More than 33. Thank you, David Ewing Jr. These are gravestones from the late 1600s and are barely legible after less than 400 years of weathering and decay. This is the Rosetta Stone after an alleged 2,222 years. Despite alleged restoration, can you see the problem? There is no way any of this would still be remotely legible for restoration after that much time and weathering. It is from this stone we are told we were able to use the Greek on the bottom to decipher the Egyptian hieroglyphics on the top. One problem though, hieroglyphics are not Egyptian. They are ancient Druidic Welsh-Irish chimeroglyphs that the Welsh can still learn to read today, still having the closest surviving language today other than Manx. These symbols are words, not letters. Egyptologists totally ignore this glaring problem when making these translations from their dictionaries based on the Rosetta Stone translations done by Jean-Francois Champollion and Thomas Young, and just take wild liberties to make translations fit their narratives, because they have to, since their source stone is bogus. For example, here, this opened hand symbol is supposed to be the letter D, yet up here, it is a letter T, yet over here, they tell us the letter T is this upside down cup symbol, not an open hand. Well, make up your mind. If these symbols are supposed to be letters, which is it? These are symbols talking about the spiritual and physical qualities of the different aspects of a human being in higher or lower states. They are not talking about some fictional historical character named Ptolemies. The upside down cup is not the letter T. It comes from the Cymric word tishin, for cake, with the root word T, not the letter T, meaning you are. Since this is the Druidic spiritual science of Yesa Kriost, the spirit of God in the sun, and its lower human aspect of the divine spark or spirit in the essence of man, now you can read these glyphs too. You are the successor to the Supreme One, filled with spiritual abundance, now here in this physical place as He who is supreme, the divine spark or spirit of God in the essence of man, in this established place of physical incarnation. Perhaps the mattress is even a metaphor for our spirit being asleep while incarnated here on the flat physical existence, and the vertical of that glyph, meaning the cloak that makes us unable to see our established spiritual permanence. Which leads to the question, are any of these alleged historical people and places even real? Anatoly Fomenko has proven our timelines of history are completely fabricated. But what about the characters themselves? From age 20 to 30, just 10 short years, Alexander the Great is alleged to have expanded his empire from Greece to India to Babylon, a feat the U.S. Army in Israel is not even able to do today with all of their advanced military equipment and unlimited vendor suppliers for food, supplies, troops, bases, roads, etc. Never mind cargo ships and cargo aircraft. But is it possible that the entire story of at least early ancient Egypt itself is an absolute fraud and fabrication, just like Rome, to hide our real Irish origins of civilization and the Druidic origins of the Abrahamic religions from their faithful dupes? let's look at some damning evidence to support exactly that possibility. The word Egypt itself is another Irish compound word named Eopt, meaning flesh or sex, the mother principle or spirit birthed into the body. You might know that mother spirit principle as Cleopatra, the Queen of Egypt. It comes from these three Irish Gaeilge words, meaning the flesh or body, web or the mother's womb, and clamorous or turbulent desire. The son was said to go down into a cave in the west in the night, in the ocean, to his daily death. His spirit in man also descends into the cave of the body at generation and birth, where it was said to be dead. It was thought that the body was death to the spirit, and when bodily desires are rampant and awake, spiritual desires are dormant. The more we are absorbed in the things of the body and the world on this material plane, the less we are in things of the spirit. Egypt and the pharaohs are Irish lore preserved in the Old Testament. The word pharaoh is an Irish hybrid of far, meaning man. Far is still Danish for father to this day. Ro, meaning ride, the sensual man, and roan, meaning two sexes and sexless spirit. In other words, this is the word for man, a combination of the physical five-sense body and the non-physical sexless spirit. Egyptologists tell us King Menes became the first Egyptian pharaoh in 3100 BC, according to the historian Manetho, who is most likely a fictional historian like the rest, and is identified by Egyptologists as the same person as Narmer, though Egyptologists have a vigorous debate over if the first pharaoh Menes was really Hor-Aha, the Romanized word for Horus. But we have already established that Horus is an Irish name for the sun, not a historical pharaoh of Egypt, and the same goes for Menes. Here is a glyph for Menes as Hor-Aha. In Welsh chimeroglyphics, the top means you are, and the single corn means she. The double corn means he who is supreme, not she, but we are told Menes is a male historical pharaoh. And sure enough, King Menes comes from the Irish words mene or May, meaning May, month or monthly, where we get the word menstruation for the woman's monthly menstrual cycle. Menes was said to have dug the river Nile, which comes from the Irish words newel or fuel, meaning the blood in the body. Menes was said to have been the king of Upper Egypt, who led his forces into Lower Egypt and overthrew the king, and his symbol was the double crown, symbolizing unification of the joining of separate parts into one. Upper Egypt is the spirit, and Lower Egypt is the bodily animal desires. This is clearly allegory for this druidic spiritual science, not historical people or events. Next, we have the alleged historical king Potiphar or Potiphara or Potiphar, also an Irish Gaeilge compound word from the Irish poti, meaning the bowels or belly, the physical man attached to food, sex, and material carnal pleasure, and fur, meaning man, truth, wisdom, a priest of the sun, the spiritual man who overcomes the bodily desires. King Potiphar was said to be a high priest of An or Ra, the sun, Yesu-Krios. This is the biblical allegory of Joseph, the ego or self, who is trying to build up the perfected spiritual body or Jerusalem. Joseph is seduced by Potiphar's wife, Desire, and is accused and imprisoned, but in the end he gets out of prison, now believed and entrusted by Potiphar, and he marries Potiphar's daughter, Asenath, wisdom, an allegory for the rewards of choosing things of the spirit over the body and physical. These are not historical people. There is a similar mythology behind the story of Adam and Eve. The word Adam is a compound of the Irish words ad, meaning I, and Sam, meaning am. Or as Dr. Seuss said in Green Eggs and Ham, I am Sam, Sam I am. The original Irish form of this character is Adam, with the dot over the D making it a DH, and a dot over the M making it an MH, but the MH sounded as a V. So Adam becomes Ad-Av, an emasculated form of Adam and Eve, our sexless nature in the non-physical spirit realm. Av together means joy, gladness, felicity, happiness, spiritual consciousness. Apart, A can mean father and Av mother. The Bible says, male and female he created them, and blessed them, and called their name Adam in the day when they were created. What do you mean the day they were created? I thought Adam was created first and Eve was created later out of his rib. This has led some researchers to fantasize that these are some literal race of people called the Adamu in a literal place on earth called Eden. More Zecharia Sitchin's fantasy or trickery, no doubt. This is where other Irish words come from, like Adamra, meaning admiration, Adamrate, meaning to bless, love, adore, Adamrak, meaning blessed, and Adamer, meaning similitude, likeness, the old Druidic idea that God is love and made man in his own image and likeness. The Garden of Eden is from the Irish Eden, meaning love, tenderness, generosity, charity, and forbearance or patience. The English form means a den or a cave, an allegory for both the spiritual body and the physical body. The tree in the midst of the garden or human body is the phallic tree or the organ of generation. The four heads of the river that waters the Garden of Eden are Pishon, an Irish compound of pis, meaning urine, and han from thon, meaning the hips, buttocks, the body's renal system. Gihon also comes from thon and is the body's alimentary canal. Hidikil is the blood and circulatory system, and Euphrates is taken from the Greek, so the Irish is lost, but it would most likely be the semen and reproductive system, as that is what the entire mythology is talking about. Man falling from the non-gendered spiritual body into the gendered physical body, and the act of physical sex and reproduction causing man's cycle of constant reincarnation for the 1,000 years. The serpent in the garden represents the idea or thought of sex and is always to be guarded against. This is where the ancient yogic techniques of semen retention come from, as well as why Catholic priests go to seminaries or seminaries and are supposed to remain celibate. But of the tree of knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in the day that you eat of it you shall surely die. So predictably, once you understand this, Adam and Eve beget Cain, Abel, and Seth, embodying the ancient Irish adept belief in the triune nature or threefold nature of man, namely that he is composed of body, soul, and spirit. Cain represents the body, who was the tiller of the ground, the alchemical element earth representing the body. God made Adam from the clay. Cain is Irish and has different forms of spellings with different meanings. The root is ka, meaning house. The body is the house for the soul. Cain, spelled C-A-O-N, means resemblance, concealment. Cain, spelled C-A-I-N, means a can, vessel, rent, a fault, satire, law. His brother Abel is the keeper of sheep, or the soul. It is from the Irish ebal, meaning a spark, a coal, a burning fire. Cain slays Abel, as contact with the bodily nature is always said to deaden the higher soul qualities in man. In the ancient Irish sacerdotal, the more we are engrossed in things of the body, the less we are in those of the spirit. We see this later with Paul in Galatians 5:17. For the flesh lusteth against the spirit, and the spirit against the flesh, and these are contrary, the one to the other, so that you cannot do the things that ye would. The complete opposite of Setian Atonist or Satanist Dark Luciferian Aleister Crowley's "do what thou wilt" shall be the whole of the law. Nope. Cain is punished severely by God for slaying Abel and killing his higher spiritual goodness and nature towards others for his lower animal selfish satisfaction and desires, so much so that he finds the punishment unbearable. The allegorical lesson from this is Adam and Eve's third son Seth begat to them very late in their ages or allegorical stage of spiritual progression, who represent the spirit. It is from the Irish Seth, spelled S-I-O-T-H, meaning peace, concord, spiritual, godly, and also Se, spelled S-A-O-I, and the Irish Sais, both meaning wisdom. Wisdom is not knowledge. It is taking right behavioral action because you know better. Knowledge is knowing that cheating on your wife for some instant temporary physical gratification will probably get you caught, destroy your family and lives, and lose half of your hard-earned shit in the divorce, but you do it anyway because you are a slave to your lower animal nature and can't help yourself. Wisdom is not doing it in the first place for exactly those reasons, because you can help yourself. That's why Seth is the god of wisdom, and he is not Egyptian. He is Sethar, the all-wise, an Irish name of God. He is the embodiment of many generations of spiritual progress through hundreds of experiential reincarnations. And thus finally Seth begets Enosh or Enos, without a female wife or partner to bear this child to him. Obviously, biologically impossible, unless you ask a modern brainwashed Setian Atonist mind control victim, or until we understand it is just an allegory, as Enosh is from the Irish Ain, meaning the sun, representing the sun man or perfected solar body, the spiritual body of brightness or solar light, the vesture of the perfect man after 1,000 years of experiential reincarnation and disinterest in the gross animal pleasures of the physical. This same mythology repeats in the story of Noah's Ark. Noah comes from the Irish Noah, meaning 9, as in the 9 months in the mother's womb, as the spirit ego descends into the flesh of the fetus. The Irish generative form is Nora, meaning a sailor. Get it? This sailor, Noah's Ark, comes from the Irish Ark with a C, meaning the body, pig, bee, wasp, lizard, a collection, as in collection of animals, small, swift. In this Irish myth, the ark is the mother's body, and the water or flood is the womb that carries the spirit for 9 or Noah months until the physical body is birthed or hits land, the physical. Just like with Cain, Abel, and Seth, Noah also has 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japhet, representing body, soul, and spirit, who go off and seed Africa, Asia, and Europe. Ham is Irish for the hips and represents or is said to have gone off and seeded Africa, the body or lower sensual physical nature of man, generation. Africa is an Irish compound word from afir, meaning a man, and fracca, meaning sport or debauch, or afir fracca, an inconsistent man, as they thought spirit is lost as we are born into the physical. Shem is from the Irish Sam, Samhain, Shamos, meaning the sun, and is said to have seeded Asia, from the Irish word acholasia, meaning the navel, the soul, or the region of passional nature, growth, and germination. The navel, or belly button, is where the umbilical cord is attached from the mother to the fetus. The umbilical vein supplies the developing fetus with oxygenated, nutrient-rich blood from the mother's placenta and carries away waste products. So why would the navel be the seat of the soul? Because the word John, as in John the Baptist, comes from the word ionis, meaning soul or fluids of the body. The umbilical cord does exactly that. Supplies the fetus with oxygenated rich blood from the mother's placenta through the fetus's belly button or navel. That's the real reason why passengers on board naval ships are called souls instead of people. Noah's third son, Japhet, obviously then represents the spirit in the triune nature of man. It is from the Irish Yah. There was no J in Irish Gaeilge. The letter J was invented in 1524 for the Latin alphabet, so the Septien Atenist Roman Catholic Church turned the Irish Yah into Jah, Yahweh, Jehovah, Japhet, who was said to go off and seed Europe, which is from the Irish Europe, meaning the east, the sun, highest, the head, the spirit or higher nature of man. So who has been naming our geographical continents on maps and in history books? This is not to say there weren't any major earth-changing floods in our history. There is ample and undeniable geological proof that there were, but be wary of anyone who calls any of them the historical biblical flood of Noah. There was no such historical thing or person. Many people talk about archaeologists finding Noah's Ark deep inside of Mount Ararat in Turkey with groundbreaking, ground-penetrating radar. They won't address the fact that the finders have not even excavated it, but just believe it might be the remnants of Noah's Ark due to a chemical imprint along with pieces of wood in the ground in the shape of a hall that appeared to be, but nobody knows if it is, a 13-foot passageway cutting through the formation center, as if caves or pockets in mountains never existed. Never mind, 13 feet isn't big enough for 2 elephants, let alone all of those animals, Noah and his family, and all of the food stores it would take to feed all of those animals for months, or why this ark is buried deep inside of a mountain instead of just in the edge, if mountains take millions of years to form, or if Mount Ararat is barren and the tallest landmass in the area, to land on it would mean everything else around it would still be a mile underwater. So where did all of these animals live, and what did they eat when they got off the boat stranded on this barren mountaintop? You have to abandon all logic and common sense to take this story literally. Noah is said to be a literal descendant of Adam and Seth via Enoch, and Enoch was said to be the same historical character as Hermes, Thoth, Enki, or Moses. But here again, Enoch is just another Irish word, Enoch or Eni, meaning a sage, an enlightened person, an Irish Druidic priest of Yesu Christ, not a historical figure. The Book of Enoch is possibly one of a few surviving allegorical science books from this genius Irish Druidic Gnostic encoded knowledge of the cycles of the stars, astronomy and astrology above in the northern hemisphere, and the physical and alchemical wisdom below, tied to the astrological aspects of them above in Druidic alchemy, astrology, and astrotheology, not the historical account of factual events tied to a man named Enoch. The reason he is confused to be some literal and historical characters or gods on earth called Hermes or Thoth in other parts of the world is because Thoth means thought, and Ireland was the Emerald Isles. So the Emerald Tablets of Thoth are the surviving tablets of this Druidic wisdom from the Emerald Isles, taught around the world to the primitive tribes and peoples by these Druidic priests of Yesu Christ, also called the Omnis or the Hyksos. Historians are puzzled as to the origin of these mysterious Hyksos people, the seafaring shepherd kings who allegedly invaded Egypt. That is because they are missing the Irish Gaeilge Ferrari keys, as Hyksos, spelled Tig-saus means upper house, Magian priest, a spiritual shepherd. They did not invade Egypt, they created and civilized it. And all of this is the crux of all of the troubles of the modern world today. Jews and Arabs ignorantly think they are the literal Semitic descendants of Noah's son Shem. Jews falsely think they are the chosen people through the Abrahamic covenant with God, through Abraham's son Isaac and Isaac's son Jacob, who Jews falsely think was renamed Israel. That is as absurd and insane as believing you are the descendants of Big Bird, Cookie Monster, and Oscar the Grouch. And now they want to kill Palestinians to take back their promised land on Sesame Street. Here's how brainwashing and mind control works. We just examined proof in detail that Adam is an Irish Druidic allegory for man born into the physical from the spirit. Seth is an allegory for the spiritual nature of the body, soul, spirit, triune man. Enosh is an allegory for man perfecting his spiritual solar body over a 1,000 years of reincarnation. Enoch is a word for an Irish adept Hyksos priest of Yesu Christ. Noah is an allegory for spirit born into the flesh in the mother's womb for 9 months. Shem is an allegory for the soul nature of the body, soul, spirit, triune man. Abraham is an allegory for the son. Jacob is also an allegory for the son, and his name changed to Israel means spirit seed essence through the son via God. So neither Jews nor Arabs can be the literal bloodline descendants of 9 fictional Irish Druidic metaphysical allegories. If you believe you are a literal descendant of fictional allegories, you are a victim of religious brainwashing. The Christians aren't any better off, as they believe Jesus Christ is a literal blood descendant in a long messianic genealogy of these 9 fictional allegorical characters, plus dozens more fictional characters that we don't have time to break down the Irish names of, even though we have shown he is Yesu Christ, the Spirit of God in the Son, and its lower human aspect as the divine spark or spirit in the seed essence of man. As mentioned earlier, long before Rome, Greece, or Egypt, the head of the Ebra or Hebrew Druidic priests of Yesu Christ ruled the world from the seat of Tara Hill in ancient Eire, now called Ireland. He was called the Boban, meaning Papa, Father, or Pope, from the Irish word bo, meaning fire or light, in its diminutive Boban, meaning the little fire or little light, as compared to the great heavenly fire and light of the sun. The Boban, or Pope, is allegorized in the Old Irish Testament as the fictional prophets Jeremiah, hidden by the name change from Jeremiah, from the Irish Yar, meaning the West, Ireland, the seat of the Pope at Tara, and as the prophet Isaiah, from the Irish Yes, the spirit and creative son, and also the prophet Malachi, from the Irish Mel or Mull, meaning a king, and Mala, meaning a summit, a bow of a hill, or the highest sun. The Boban never abdicated his title or rule to the Pope of the Septien-Atenist Roman Catholic Church. It was appropriated by the Church after the genocide of the Druids and their followers. The word testament is from the Latin testa, meaning body, and ment, from mentis, meaning mind. Even the Roman Catholic Church is hiding in plain sight that these books are fictional esoteric allegories for the ancient Irish Druidic spirit sciences of Yesu Christ, the spiritual ego manifest into the physical body. The rogue Scythian or Scythian Septien-Atenist Roman Catholic Church and the Church of England have stolen and perverted this Hyksos ominous science in order to create and manipulate Jewish and Christian literalists to do their bidding in creating total world domination and control, their new world order. It is imperative for the Luciferian Setianatonists to convince their devout Abrahamic religious literalist dupe followers that these are historical people and historical ancient places, to convince them to kill and blow each other up over falsely believed moral religious superiority over each other and descendancy land entitlement of fictional Middle Eastern historical religious places promised by God to the descendants of fictional people that never existed, that are of actual real-life strategic geopolitical cash cow trade and trafficking routes via land and sea for those controlling commerce from Eastern Asia to Western Europe and beyond, aka the 21st century Maritime Silk Road or Chinese One Belt, One Road initiative. That little strategic land right there where they stuck a truckload of brainwashed religious literal Jews in the middle of the motherlode of brainwashed literal Islamic Muslims and Arabs to wipe each other out for the Setianatonists, arming them both and clear the way for rebuilding while depopulating each other in the process, all in the name of God, of course. Ironic for a God who allegedly told all of these people, "Thou shalt not kill." I guess none of them got the memo. This is not to knock the beautiful sacred religious texts themselves or the devout religious spiritual people seeking their truth from them. Even after all the obfuscation and doctoring of the texts and scriptures, the religions and books still hold all of the esoteric, astrological, physiological, spiritual, and alchemical Gnostic teachings that are freeing to any human being who studies how to decode and understand their allegories by reading books like these, which allows one to do so. But the Setianatonists are not going to teach any of these beautiful occulted sciences and teachings to what masses are left after they get their New World Order and One World Luciferian religion. They want to control people, not free them. Their version for the public will be more akin to Satanism, keeping people locked into the physical, though they will cleverly sell it to the people as the complete opposite, some promise of pseudo-spiritual enlightenment. That is a total dark Luciferian scam, as you'll see when we decode that symbol right there. One ring to rule them all. Hence the U World Order, blinded by the light.
The Egyptian gods never existed. They symbolized the different body parts of your body. Anubis is the dog, which represents the tongue, the barking, because the power of life and death is in the tongue. The falcon of Horus is the inner bird, which is inside of the brainstem. Thoth, the god of wisdom. Thoth is thought, because he is the god of wisdom, the thought, the human mind. Jed pillar is the spinal column, which is a part of the brain. The Ankh is the womb, the uterus in the womb, because this is the portal into the physical world. This is symbolizing how the visual field works with the brain, because you do not see into the external world. What you are seeing is an image produced by the visual cortex in the back of the brain. The back of the casket is the cerebellum, which is all to do with motor learning and cognitive functions of the brain. The scarab is the skull. Hindus used to build temples in the human form because they understood this is the most advanced piece of technology on the face of the earth. The Most High does not dwell in houses made by human hands. It's your human body. You are God made flesh. They don't want you finding out how sacred your body is and how powerful your mind is. You are the all-seeing eye on top of the pyramid, looking into the three-dimensional world. You are Solomon's temple, the temple of the soul and the mon, the soul and the mind in the temple.
Egyptologists will not address the fact that the alleged god Khonsu from Khan, the Egyptian god of the moon, is an American falcon, a very unique bird indigenous to the Americas only. So what is he doing on alleged ancient Egyptian steles that supposedly predate America as the origins of civilization? Or that the Egyptian god Anubis has the head of a pharaoh hound imported to Malta 2,000 years ago and never found in Egypt. His up-pointed ears and steep Doberman-like snout show he is not an Egyptian Saluki, who have long, dangly, furry ears and a weak, rounded snout. So how can either of these animals possibly be on authentic ancient Egyptian steles if ancient Egypt is allegedly where modern named Egypt is today, nowhere near America or Malta? It is here, in alleged ancient Egypt, where things get both very interesting and very confusing with even alternative historians in trying to figure out what is real and what is fabricated Setian Atenist history. They tell us that the north of so-called historical Egypt was actually Lower Egypt, and the so-called south of Egypt was actually Upper Egypt, because of the Nile River flowing south to north into the Mediterranean Sea, which makes no sense when you would never call geographical North America South America and South America North America, no matter which way a river flowed. And that the geographical border of the land of Canaan was on the geographical northern border of Egypt, which is actually Lower Egypt. But now we know that is because Egypt is not an ancient historical place, but an Irish word for spirit birthed into the body, and the Nile is not a historical river, but the Irish word newel for the blood in the body. So Lower Egypt, the body, switched around to the top, would border Canaan, because Canaan is said to be the son of Noah's son Ham. But we know Ham is not a literal historical person, but an Irish word for the human body and the lower sensual nature of man, not the higher spiritual nature of man, which is the Irish word Japhet. And so Ham, the human body's son Canaan, is the metaphorical lower bodily nature, the servant or vehicle for the soul and spirit to function in while the ego is here on the earth plane. Canaan is not a historical place or name. It is from the Irish root word ka, meaning a house, na, meaning the soul, and an, meaning small or little. Hence Ka-na-an, Canaan, the little soul nature, that is the lower nature personality or bodily nature, the man of little soul development. The Canaanites are not historical geographical people living above Egypt. They are an allegory that represents practically all of humanity except those who are pledged or devoted to a strict religious life and the abnegation of sex desire and sexual intercourse, like priests and their seminaries are supposed to be. In the myth, they are those addicted to sexual intercourse, the average humanity, except those who are living the aesthetic life of the spiritual aspirant who has no need for physical carnal gratification. That is why the Canaanites, the bodily sexual desires, allegedly lived in upper geographical Egypt, which is really lower metaphorical Egypt, the physical body and not spiritual nature of triune man. You could have just called it on your fake historical maps the land of make-believe, as that's exactly what they have been doing to make us all believe these were real ancient historical places and peoples rather than spiritual metaphors. And as Japhet is Irish for the spiritual part of the body, soul, spirit, triune nature of man, his second son Magog is obviously not a historical person. It is stolen from the Irish Macog, from Mac, meaning a son, and Og, meaning a virgin, which implies that he is a spiritual man and has attained that state by living a life of virgin purity as a celibate. Celibacy was the ideal of the ancient Magian cult of Iri and considered to be the requisite state through which the spiritual solar body might be perfected. This ideal permeates the entire scriptures as the path, the way to the spiritual goal, union with the Creator in the perfect solar body. I'm sorry, but that is the real allegorical meaning of the battle of Gog and Magog. Drawing it as a physical historical confrontation on a map like this is 2 miles long of retarded. It is an allegory for man struggling against his own lower nature and sexual, carnal, physical desire to attain the discipline of celibacy, to obtain his higher, non-physical, spiritual attention and aspirations. Now you know why the Setyanatanists are hypersexualizing everything, to keep your mind locked here in the lower physical, not the higher spiritual. This is not to say when these ancient Irish adepts got to the Middle East, they didn't start naming places they built after these spiritual sciences, like the Egyptian city of An, coming from the sun or wolf dog in Irish, or the Great Pyramids. But why would the Irish adepts have built the Great Pyramids in Lower Egypt, in the north of Egypt, when its alleged name Cheops is literally the Irish word spoek spelled backwards, meaning spirit, not body? The Great Pyramid Cheops sits in the Giza Plateau. Giza is taken from the Irish Yesa, spirit seed essence. Another form of this is Gaza. Are they wiping out Gaza right now to symbolically destroy God's spirit in man, to announce their new Luciferian religion? Sir Lord Francis Bacon, who is thought by many to be the ghostwriter for William Shakespeare, whose plays are all encoded allegories for astrological constellations in the Northern Hemisphere and astrotheology, said, "The mythology of the Greeks, which their oldest writers do not pretend to have invented, was more than a light air which had passed from a more ancient people into the flutes of the Greeks." The Jewish holidays still preserve the real correct annual lunar cycle through celebration, yet most Jews seem totally unaware of the lunar significance of their holidays or holy days. Most Christians never ask, if our religion is not really based on ancient Gnostic sun worship, then why is it that our religious holidays are identical to the pagan wheel of the year, marking the year's chief solar events and the midpoints between them? Bacon was also pointing this out, and that the New Testament was not Greek in origin at all, and he was put to death not long after. The Setyanatanists have gone to great lengths to hide our true historical origins and astrotheological meanings of the Jewish, Christian, and Islamic religions. Though he was missing the Irish Gaelga decoding knowledge to understand the allegories, the astounding British author Commons Beaumont was a Bible literalist who believed the biblical stories in both the Old and New Testament to be actual historical characters and events, or at the very least, typology mythologies or embellishments based on actual historical events. But what is more important is that he showed in 7 books on the subject, The Great Deception being his last and greatest book, that none of the geography, language, archaeology, orientation, topography, physical descriptions, etc., could have possibly taken place in the Middle East, where we are told these ancient places are today. He maintained that all of these places were actually in the British Isles, Western and Northern Europe, Scandinavia, and Southern Russia, and that not only the Bible, but fake Roman and later Roman Catholic invented historians were purposely lying about these locations being in the Middle East to hide the British-Irish origins of civilization, which he maintained was the true location of Atlantis. Like Beaumont, Anna Wilkes too was a Bible literalist. believing these stories to be historical, but she too came to the same conclusions as Beaumont, only through Irish words, etymology, and names of existing places in Ireland and the British Isles to this day, that none of our history could have possibly taken place in the Middle East, where we are told it did. She too maintained it happened in ancient Irie, now known as the British Isles. In recent times, though he speaks 7 languages, including Hebrew and Arabic, but sadly not Irish Galga to make the vital connection he is missing, David Ewing Jr. has nonetheless made some incredibly shocking discoveries that question all of it and are worth looking at now. We're told about the alleged first early Islamic Muslim conquests of 630 to 820 AD or CE. Remember, both AD and CE are the same calendrical dates, in which the alleged conquests of Al-Walid I in 705 to 714 AD or CE, seen here in light green, make it as far as Spain and are stopped at what is now France, never getting into the British Isles, Northern Europe, or Scandinavia. And they are a land army, not a naval army. And yet, we have coins found in England of the Christian, not Muslim, King Offa of central England, allegedly king from 757 to 796 AD or CE, in Arabic writing. Remember, England is 550 miles north of where the Islamic invasion was allegedly stopped 40 years earlier, and the last I checked, you needed a navy to get to England, an island from Spain, and you needed an army to conquer England to become its king. And why would you be a Christian king if you were a victorious Muslim invader? So what is Arabic doing on these coins? Well, we are also told that the Muslim conquests of Uthman from 644 to 656 AD or CE, here in dark green, only made it as far north as Georgia and were stopped at Caesarea. And yet, we're told silver coins with Arabic writing were found in Russia by the Volkhov River, dated from 697 to 816 AD or CE. One problem, the Volkhov River, which runs from Lake Ilmen to Lake Ladoga up north by St. Petersburg, is 1,500 miles north of where the Islamic invasion, once again allegedly 40 years prior, was stopped. So again, what is Arabic writing doing on these coins? Even stranger, we find Arabic writing on the helmet of another alleged Christian king in the Kremlin Museum in Moscow, the Tsar Mikhailovich of Russia, from 1645 to 1676. But Christianity allegedly defeated Islam in the Roman Catholic Knights Templar-led Crusades 350 years earlier. So why would a Christian king in Russia have Arabic writing on his helmet? In the Institute of Oriental Manuscripts in St. Petersburg, Russia, we find the Osman's Quran, also known as the Uthman Quran, said to be a 7th century Quran, allegedly brought to them by a mysterious anonymous old woman from Samarkand, Uzbekistan, 2,125 miles away, who wouldn't tell them where she got it or how she got it to St. Petersburg. Commons Beaumont was adamant that ancient Persia was in Russia, not Iran, as we are told. Have you ever wondered why St. Petersburg, Russia, and Moscow have buildings that look straight out of Arabia, if the Arabs and Muslims never got any farther north than Spain in their alleged invasions? Then we have this strange archaeological pattern of tens of thousands of silver dirham coins with Arabic writing on them, found in Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Finland, and the Åland Islands, Scandinavian coins allegedly from the 8th through 11th centuries. Did the Vikings really bring these coins back from Arab traders in the alleged Viking expansion? Or is something else going on that is being hidden from our history? The Scandinavian gods, too, are Irish. Thor, the god of thunder, comes from the Irish Tor, meaning noble, sovereign, lord, and Toran, meaning thunder. The Torah is Irish Druidic. Woden, Odin, Wodan, Wotan, Votan are hybrid Irish words from bow, meaning fire or light, and the diminutive Dan, Din, or Tan, meaning little or low, the low sun in the northern hemisphere heavens, giving forth little heat or light. The Scandinavian Faroe Islands are said to have been founded by Irish-Scottish monks in either the 800s or 900s, and not only has a star fort and a similar alphabet to Irish, but also several huge, perfect geometrical pyramid mountains that dwarf the Great Pyramid of Giza, though claimed to be naturally wind-blown mountains. Interestingly, Beaumont claimed ancient Egypt was historical, but was actually what is now called Wessex, or northern England and Wales, but was once all just Eire, the Western Isles, right there by the Faroe Islands. Are those really ancient Egyptian pyramids now just grown over and not wind-blown mountains? The point is, ancient Chaldean Arabic and Hebrew are Irish, and those coins and artifacts make a lot more sense if they were already up there, not brought there, and much more recently than history is claiming. As David Ewing Jr. points out in his books, here is a painting in the Louvre of the Christian Saint Louis or St. Louis of Toulouse, again, with Arabic writing around the dark halo around his head. What is it doing there on a Christian saint? Here is a painting of baby Jesus, or Yeshua, Yesu Christ, with the solar disk around his head, denoting the Spirit of God via the Son into the seed essence of a newborn baby, and his mother, the Virgin Mary. Yet, she too has Arabic written around the halo around her head. What is that doing on the alleged matriarch of Christianity? We've already shown that Anna Wilkes proved Babylon could not possibly have been an ancient historical place situated in now modern Iraq, and Commons Beaumont was adamant that Babylon, aka Jericho, was the English city now known as York, once Eric, as in Jericho, and that the ancient surviving city walls of York, or Eric, were the biblical walls of Jericho, and that Clifford's Tower in York was the biblical Tower of Babel. Again, we know Babylon was not a city, but a symbol for the lower nature of desire and sensation, which holds the soul in captivity, a mystic name for the stronghold of materialism. And sure enough, this 1990 picture of the alleged Temple of Nebu in Nimrud, Iraq, allegedly 2,800 years old, but after ISIS militants destroyed the temple in 2015, we can clearly see very modern and recent constructed concrete and modern machined rebar sticking out of the pieces of rubble, which normally rusts and corrodes at 1/10 micrometer per year. And yet, there is zero sign of any significant rust after an alleged 3,000 years. Never mind that though large iron and wood rods were used since antiquity to build arches, reinforced concrete wasn't allegedly invented until the 1850s. So what is reinforced concrete doing in the rubble of an alleged 3,000-year-old temple in Iraq or Babylon? Or is it really only less than 170 years old? Here is the Temple Dair el-Bahari in Luxor, Egypt, said to be 4,087 years old, built from 2061 to 2010 BCE, and excavated in 1893 to 1906. One problem, though, here is a photo of the same site, taken in 1890. As you can see, there is nothing there. You can pause this and see the very distinct matching mountain points all around to know you are in the same place, but this temple clearly wasn't excavated 3 years after this photo. It was built. It is as ancient as the Copenhagen apartment building I live in from the late 1890s. Here it is now, and here it is in 1930, still only half built from what it looks like today. You can even see clearly the train tracks on the ground they used to have Egyptian slaves bring in the building materials. Here's the crane they used to build it, the same as seen here. Here, from David Ewing Jr.'s book, we have the alleged Temple of Karnak, or Temple of Amun, also in Luxor, said to be 3,997 years old. Except here too, in the older photos, we see clearly modern concrete and metal rebar sticking out all over the place, like here, and here, and here, and even here. The whole point of rebar is so the concrete blocks stay in place and can't fall off. So how would the top blocks have fallen off without those bars bending? Or is it being constructed? Today, on the right picture, the statues are all on the same ground level on both sides of the street, completely finished and sculpted, and have perfect rectangular bases under them. On the left picture, the left side statues are 10 feet below the right side ones. None of them are even sculpted, nor have a perfect rectangular base around them, and the dirt road is clearly there with the railroad tracks and carts bringing things in, not out. Down here below them, the statues appear to be being carved. Does that look like this? Over here now, on the same street level, we have 13 distinct light shadows showing 13 statues sitting on perfect rectangular stands. Yet over here, we only have 3 of them. Where are the other 10? You can see them being held up by these ropes and pulley, and that they are sitting on boards and wheels, waiting to be attached to the half-finished bottom rectangular stands. If the ancients really built them, they should have already been standing on the ground way down there under the dirt like the other side of the street, not being assembled up on a dirt ramp by pulleys and railroad carts. Here's the alleged Great Hall inside Karnak now, and here's a photo from 1900. You can see ropes for construction, as well as the railroad tracks leading in to bring dirt and blocks. Old desert dirt is dry and white like this. Fresh dirt is dark and moist like that. They are not unburying that temple. They are building dirt ramps inside to make it easier to lift stones and blocks higher up, as was done in stone construction before modern machinery. Here's more construction equipment here with pulleys and levers, and they are clearly using slave labor. These fake temples bring in millions of dollars of tourism annually, while brainwashing people to believe there was some magically advanced indigenous culture in Egypt, whose beautiful people were really mostly illiterate, riding camels and donkeys, and wearing togas and cloth diapers up until only 150 years ago. As the great and controversial Anatoly Fomenko pointed out in his book, History, Fiction or Science, the Issue with Chronology, not only have the Setyanatnists been busy building fake historical sites around the world, but they have been even busier inventing a completely fictional historical timeline, like this absolute fictional nonsense right here, and copying and pasting fictional historical characters and events into different timelines and alleged geographical locations, so that it is nearly impossible for us to figure out what is real history and what is fabricated, and I maintain, most certainly, so that we will never find out what this film has covered so far, or who these Setyanatnists really are, as this film will cover next. For example, On the left are the alleged Byzantine or Eastern Roman emperors, starting with Theodosius I the Great from 379 AD, and on the right are the alleged kings of England, starting with Cenwalh, allegedly, historically, just less than 300 years later than Theodosius, and then follows all of the successive Byzantine emperors versus English kings and how many years they each allegedly ruled. And yet, they are nearly identical parallels to each other in how many rulers and how long each allegedly ruled for, with only minuscule exceptions, all the way down. What are the odds? It could, admittedly, just be the world's greatest historical coincidence. Except we find the same identical pattern with the alleged Holy Roman Emperors on the left versus the alleged biblical kings of Judah on the right. Yet this time, Henry I the Fowler is supposed to be from 919 AD, and Rehoboam is supposed to be from 931 BC, 1850 years earlier. Yet here, too, we find identical timelines all the way down. Another coincidence? Of course not, because the Bible is not historical, as we've seen. But then, is the alleged Holy Roman Empire even historical itself if it identically mirrors an allegorical fiction? Here are the alleged historical Russian Horde Empire rulers on the left versus the alleged Habsburg Empire of Europe on the right, which allegedly happened at the exact same historical time but in two totally different places. And yet we find here again the exact same identical pattern. Is this another coincidence? You could rightfully argue that different political allegiances would put different political allies in power together at roughly the same times. But how about the Spanish kings of Navarre, allegedly from 880 AD to 1234 AD, and the alleged kings of Sweden, allegedly 720 years later? Could they have an identically changing political allegiance too, to people over 700 years before or after them? Because their timelines too are identical to each other. Or that the alleged start of the Carolingian Holy Roman Empire of the West and the end of the alleged Old Third Roman Empire of the East have a 360-year difference between them, the degrees of the circle, spirit, or sun, and yet identical timelines yet again. Is this coincidence too, or is somebody fabricating our history? We'll find out in Part 2, the Setian Atonist Cult of Venus.